My name is Schwalbe Schwalbe. I'm 38 years old. I'm actually the founder of Stroke Art Fair. I had the idea for the art fair. Here, working as somehow the curator, the creative director of the art fair. And I'm also representing my own gallery, Intoxicated Demons, as well as an agency by the name of Schwalbe Schwalbe. I got involved in urban art probably around the year of 2000. At this time I was working in Switzerland in a little village, and I noticed the strong development in street art, and I wanted to do that by myself, so I started to go out stenciling at night in a tiny little village. So it was really nice and easy. Around 3 o'clock in the morning nobody was on the street, so I had all the time in my life. And after that I was digging more and more at the internet, and I found out that there was a huge development in art throughout the last at least 20-30 years. There was not only street art, there was lowbrow in the US, the graffiti development moved on, as well as many other things. So when I came back to Berlin in 2005, I decided to run my own gallery. I had no idea about the business, but I was like really passionate. And then I started to open the gallery. I invited the artists that I liked, that I would personally buy. And yeah, this is how everything began somehow. Stroke was basically an idea that came out of the necessity of getting into the art market. After a few years in the gallery of showing and somehow selling artworks, I realized I need to be more involved in the art market. But the classic art fair was way too expensive for me, and so I thought, why not creating something that works somehow as an art fair, but is way cheaper for young galleries. I was talking to some other galleries in Berlin around that time. I think that was like 2008. Everybody loved the idea to create an alternative event parallel to art, Kunstherbst in German, in Berlin. But then everybody got lost in their own projects, so the idea died a little bit. But then we decided to go to Munich, and we started to make a huge pop-up exhibition here. And in the first night we had more than 1,500 visitors coming to that exhibition. So we decided to stay in Munich, and I don't want to do the same exhibition again. So I was like kind of digging the idea of Stroke again. And then we just started to organize it here in Munich, and the first one in 2009 was already a huge success. Actually, throughout the years, I pretty much got to know probably 200, 300, 400 artists from all the exhibitions, all these Stroke art fairs. And from time to time we got asked by agencies, for example, when they were thinking about creating campaigns or having events, they asked us for artists, and even sometimes for concepts. And since we have an advertorial background, me and my brother, we both were working in agencies. We started the idea of running the agency to be able to communicate between the needs of an agency and, of course, the interest and the needs of an artist. So we just started that. We asked artists if they wanted to, if we should represent them. And then we did a couple of corporate jobs for that. And we also start to somehow manage artists that would like to have more freedom maybe in their working time. They don't want to maybe answer all the emails. So we start slowly with that kind of business. But it's not the main income right now. So it's just a part of everything. I think in general, the most difficult point for us here at Stroke was always that the media really was kind of stuck on the term of street art. Because everything around the time of, let's say, 2004, 2005, everything was street art. And we always tried to somehow educate the media a little bit, the people, that there's way more behind that label. I think the urban art as a term is not a scientific term, of course. For us, it's always something like a melting pot of all kinds of different techniques, different ideas, different styles. And personally, in the last 2 years, I was spending a little bit more time digging into historical relations. So for myself, urban art, the term maybe will disappear too in a few years. But what we have right now is, I would call it like kind of a postmodern art movement, because if you take a look around, for example, at Stroke, there's so many different artists, so many different works, influenced by so many different art directions and art historical aspects, that there is nothing really that would cover all of them into only one pot, for example, or only one term. So I think it's kind of a postmodern movement. But in general, I would agree on that there's a increase in interest in that art, especially for a younger audience, but also for an audience that was kind of annoyed from the classic art scene. So there was a very interesting moment for me. It was like 2 years ago. I met two old ladies at Stroke, probably around 70 years old. And they came to me and said, like, usually we're not interested in art, but what you have here is wonderful. We are so amazed, we really enjoy everything. So I feel like that, especially urban art, is taking or bringing somehow beauty back. Certain beauty, not obviously beauty, but certain beauty techniques. It's about craft techniques. And that's kind of a difference to classic contemporary art, where it's enough that you just place something somewhere in a museum or in a gallery. I think urban art is a good example that there's a return to skills, technical aspects, to creativity and to beauty. When we were thinking about some press headlines a few years ago in Berlin, we were using the idea of like a re-democratization of art, because we noticed that a lot of people were afraid somehow, or they had a distance to classic art, to classic art consuming, like in galleries and museums, because they often felt not comfortable. They had the idea that they were maybe not having enough money, not enough education about certain aspects. And urban art, and especially here at Stroke, people can have the idea of, no matter why they like a painting, is it the color, is it the topic, is it whatever, they are free to decide if they like it or not. Nobody will talk to them and say like, oh, you don't fit here, you don't fit in here, or you are not educated enough. So that's kind of a re-democratization of art. And it's actually, what we want is that just anybody can decide by themselves if they like it or not. I think there will be more popularity, more and more classic galleries have young artists that come out of the urban art movement. And I was just, in October last year, I was in Sao Paulo, and I met a few classic galleries, and they told me that almost every gallery in Brazil, for example, has a street artist or a graffiti artist in their roster. So urban art in the next years will probably go more and more into public, into important galleries, into museums. There's more and more interest. I think a lot of the interest is driven by the art market. Obviously, there are some high results on sales for some artists. And also, if you take a look back, the kids who grew up in the 80s with hip-hop, graffiti, they're now somehow in a job, and they probably, if they want to buy art, and they probably want to buy not something that they don't understand, that they don't like, they will choose something that reminds them on their past or on their kind of the way how they lived and so on. The plans for us right now is I moved to Munich because we will not have Stroke again in Berlin. I moved here to Munich, and we would like to open up a gallery space here because of all the projects that we have running here. I have a new roster of artists that I would like to represent here. Then there's a new art fair which will take place here at the same location at the end of the year. It's more or less an art fair for artists that somehow can represent themselves. And then the most interesting development for us right now is that we are thinking about exporting Stroke to Brazil. We have some requests from Sao Paulo, from Rio de Janeiro. They are very interested. We have a lot of people knowing Stroke over there in South America. So that seems to be the most amazing thing for the next year.